Ramdas managed to charter a bus run by 2 Europeans that would take them from Bodh Gaya to Delhi. And we said, what the hell, let's go. We'll get on the bus too. We'll get on the bus. And we stopped in Varanasi, and then we went on to Allahabad, but we weren't going to stop in Allahabad, but one of the people on the bus, Danny Goldman, had been to the Mela earlier that year and insisted that we go to the Mela site. So we did. And we were driving through this desolate, looked like a war zone. There was one tree and what I know now to be a Hanuman temple under the tree. And as we were going by, Rameshwar Das, he was sitting next to me and he saw Maharaji. They said, there's Maharaji. So the bus stopped. Everybody piled out. And I, who had never bowed, scraped, pranamed, knelt before any human before, found myself flat on the ground in samadhi. I was out. I don't know how long I was out, but I do know that when I came back and I looked up at him, it was like two suns shining on me. And he was giggling like a small baby giggles. And right then and there, I knew why I was in India, and my seeking was over. And I found my master. I didn't know I was looking for one, but I found him. He found me, actually. He called me. So that was it. You know, we stayed there for 2 or 3 days in Allahabad. Maharaji apparently had expected us, and he had made arrangements for 25 foreigners to stay. Earlier that day, he had made those arrangements. And, you know, we were very well treated and very comfortable, very well fed, more than well fed. We had to learn how to not get more food thrown onto our plate, which became a game, you see, because you go like this and they go like that. I was a devotee and basking in his love. Right. There was no talk. I didn't see him again until springtime in Vrindavan. And Vrindavan was marvelous. It was magical. It was, the rooftop was gorgeous, and every morning we would hear the kirtan starting up at Maharaji's ashram. The man sang a version of the Mahamantra, which was so celestial. We were at least a mile away from the ashram, and you could hear it if you were on the rooftop. So at 4 in the morning he got going, and we'd walk, and there'd be gardens along the way. It was like the Vrindavan of old. We were somehow caught up in that beautiful, beautiful vibration of love, of Krishna love. And it was very sweet. And Maharaji was very sweet. Well, how I got my name is that it was the monsoon of '71 from Kenchi. He had told me to go for a walk, and for a week. And my sandals broke about 2 days out. And so I wear a size 45 European sandal, which were not available in the little towns of the Kumon, where there wasn't even motor roads where I was. So I was doing these pedal margs, these walking paths that linked all the villages together. And so I was going up and down hills in the monsoon, and my feet turned. They started to look a lot like steak. They were bloody, and they were beaten, and they had flies all over them, and it was quite something. So when I got back from the walk, I entered Kenchi, and Maharaj, I could see, I came around the corner and there was Maharaji at the tucket, and so I was racing to him with my hands out like this, and he turned to whoever was there, saying, the guy is completely God intoxicated, he's must. The term is, he's must. And then he turned to me and said, you are Tukaram. So that was fun. And I didn't understand who Tukaram was at all at the time, but I since read and saw, you know, the beauty of his poetry and his ecstatic states. And the thing about the name Tukaram is, if you break it up, which nobody does, but it's 3 syllables. Tu-ka-ram. Tu means you, ka means of you, ram. So I took it to be my sadhana, that everything that was coming to me was being sent by Ram. Tukaram, Tukaram, wake up, Tukaram. It's quite perfect. Around that time, I'm sitting there in front of Maharaji, and he allowed me often to rub his feet and his calves, and it was an amazingly blissful experience to do that. So one fine morning at Kenchi, I'm busy doing that, and I don't even want to, I can't even talk about that. But, so as I'm doing that, he looks at me and then he looks at the assembled foreigners and he says, you know, I've been in this business for a while now and I've seen a lot of people come and go. But there's one person that stands out for being the least worthy, really the lowest of the low, the scum of the scum, and that person is Tukaram. So needless to say, I became a pariah in the blink of an eye. All these people, these 4, they had rented houses in Kenchi Valley. I wasn't welcome on the porch even. Dog could enter the porch. But moi, Heidi, Tula, get out.
But you didn't seek an explanation from Maharaji as to why he
No,
said something
well,
like that.
you don't question Maharaji. It's not like that. And so I was camping up in a little tiny hamlet called Ninglat. It's tiny, it didn't even have a chai shop, so it's very tiny. And on next to a haystack, I found a comfortable spot to spend the night. And so I'd walk up the 5 or 6 kilometers to Ninglat in the dark and come back the next morning. And he didn't throw me out. And I would continue to rub his feet. And he would continue to talk about this scum that was there. But it didn't bother me because I was rubbing his feet. And anybody who's rubbed his feet will know exactly what I'm talking about. All is well. Doesn't matter what he's talking about. And so, and it culminated at one point where actually I went into a state of samadhi. It's not something that happened every day for me, and it didn't happen at will. It just happened this time. And it was divine, and when I came back into my body, there was just tears flowing down like Niagara Falls, and I was still rubbing his feet, and nobody noticed. You know, it was just something, and he looked down, smiled at me, and continued his abuse. And
Continued to abuse you.
yeah, so what does this mean? This means that I, who had a need to be loved by one, to be loved by all, realized that if I had his love, who gives a shit about what the other people think? You know, my thing with Maharaji is all I really need. And he made me feel it and live it. It wasn't some theory. He said, you know, he says, often to all of us, and to me in particular sometimes, don't try and figure everything out. It's better just to see God's hand in everything, and then everything is fine. Don't trouble yourself with why is this happening to me.
And how has it panned out in your life since Maharaji's presence? And
Maharaji is a very tough guru kind of guy. So I've had my share of suffering. You know, he asked me once what I wanted, and I said, I want mukti. And he went, huh? Get serious. What do you want? I said, you asked me. I want mukti. He said, okay, given. Now what do you want? I said, if you've given me mukti, I'm done, you know. I don't need anything else. I'm satisfied with that. And he said, you're very clever. And then he made it very hard for me. I had a very, very, very many tests. And I only asked him once in my life for something other than mukti. And it almost killed me. It almost killed me. I was in a state, I was hit with a triple whammy, and for 6-7 years I was not much more than a zombie. I was empty inside. Maharaj's name meant nothing, nothing. It was the same as popcorn, you know, nothing, zero. So it took a long time to come out of that.
And how do you explain this being here in Tiruvannamalai?
I don't know how to explain being in Tiruvannamalai. I can just say it's the greatest blessing to be here. I've been fortunate enough that the ashram here has given me access to entry visas, so now I don't have to leave the country. I can leave the country, but I don't have to leave the country, and I don't have to pretend to be a tourist anymore. I mean, when I got my visa here, it's an interesting story, because for a couple of years I'd been thinking I want to get this, I want to get an entry visa. And then it just so happened that last winter I was talking to a healer kind of person here, and she told me that she would take me to see the man in charge. I said, fine. She said, so meet me in front of his office at 9 o'clock, Tuesday, Mangalvar. So she shows up and we go into the office, and she tells him what a great devotee I am, and da-di-da-di-da-di-da. And then he turns to me and says, well, what's your story? You know, this is your... And I tell him, well, you know, I've been coming for a long time, and I'm done. You know, I'm done in the world as much as I can be done, and so I'd like to be here continuously as much as possible. And then Jayanti says to him, he's a great devotee of Neem Karoli, Baba. And this guy, so? And so she says, you don't know who he is? And he looks up at her like this, and he picks up an email that had been put on his desk 5 minutes before, while we were right there. And he reads, Dear Maniji, thank you so much for your kindnesses through all this season. I'm on my way to London. I'm in Chennai just now. And I know I'm going to have a great trip because I've taken the blessings of Neem Karoli Baba. Now this is so bizarre, because this is Ramana's, this is the guy who's basically running, he's the #2 guy running the ashram. You would normally expect her to say, I've taken the blessings of Ramana, I've taken the blessings of Arunachala, but Neem Karoli Baba. And so I'm seeing Maharajis in the corner of the room waving at me saying, I'm here too. So he's here, you know. He shows his face now and then, but mostly not. And when he turns his back, he's like Krishna in that way, you know. Krishna and the gopis. Sometimes he was there and everybody's happy, and sometimes he's not there. But now it's gotten better. You know, it's been 45 years or so since we met. And so, you know, I feel I don't need the sign, I don't need a movie, I don't need a dream. He's there, you know. He's there, and it's quite apparent to me.